Okay, fine. It's yet another day. We are right back at Lat Mixed Farm in Waya with Mr. Arthur.
Yes, please.
Nice to meet you again.
Me too, Fiona. You're most welcome.
Thank you. So today we are talking about God's farming.
Yes.
As we know, this is one of the things that is mostly practiced in northern Uganda. So most people don't take it as a good project. You can get it, people doing it like one or two things, like something usual in our culture for you to have a God in your family. But then like most people don't take it basically for business. But here is Mr. Arthur, who has been doing this thing for quite some times now. So today we are going to look in some of the important aspects to know when you want to venture into this business.
Okay.
So to start off, we shall see the financial part.
Okay.
Like, what do you need to venture into this business?
Okay.
The amount of money or other stuff.
Okay. Thank you so much. That is very, very key, because when you are talking about the financial aspects, it helps the person out there when they are planning. Now, it will depend on how many goats you would want to start with. But still, there are other basics that you should bear in mind that you cannot, go against or avoid. And now, depending on the number of goats that you want to start with, you must have the money to buy the goats. If you are going to start with the local ones, you should be able to know that maybe it costs between 150 or 200 to buy a local goat. So if you want to start with, say, 10 goats, you should be able to have, let's say, 1.5 to 2 million shillings. That one is very key. That is one. The second aspect is you need to put aside some money to put up a simple structure of a goat. Now, I encourage people to use the available resources they have in their backyard. If you look here, you'll see, notice that I planted some trees along the fence. Those are part of those that I used to break, cut, and put as poles. Then I went ahead to look for used iron sheets and use them as roofing and also on the sides. I only incurred costs in terms of buying, let's say, nails and the hammer and so forth. So there's that little bit of money that you need when it comes to the structure. Once you have your animals on site, you are going to have some money that you're going to use to procure some medication. You must have a set of medication that you must have at your farm, because you're dealing with life. Just we say we have human life, we also have goat life. They fall ill, they get sick, and they need that medication. Now, in order for you to stock the right medication, you're supposed to get in touch with your district vet officer or a vet that has been recommended to you by the people that are into goat farming that they know out there. He will tell you the basics that you can go for. So once you do that, you stock that medication and have it available. It will help you when a goat gets sick. It can fall sick on a Sunday when you cannot be able to call a vet, and the vets are not as many. It may be very far away, but you need to call him to treat. Or if he's not able to come, if you give him a phone call, he'll tell you to describe what the situation is, and he'll refer you to the medication that he told you. You're able to pick that and do what? And be able to treat your animal. That's very important. Then, you are supposed to also have some money aside. It is important to budget for the vaccination of your goats. There are around the 5, 6, 7 killer diseases depending on the region where you are. And when you say region, you find that basically in Uganda we call it like one region. We also have the Kenyans, we have the Tanzanians, the other parts. So you find what is prevalent here as a disease may not necessarily be in another country. But here the vet officers, they'll be able to advise you and guide you on what to be able to vaccinate against, and you should be able to to buy that medicine plan for that vaccination and have a vet come. So you'll find the vet will going to charge you differently per animal when he's doing that service and be able to have that money. But most important also, remember, it is a business. It takes a while to grow. That means you have to incur some labor in terms of herdsmen, meaning you have to put aside some money to pay for these herdsmen for a certain period of time. It might take you 2 years, depending on the numbers you've started with, before you can be able to before you can be able to start selling off some animals. So you need to have this money, set aside and be able to support the animals. You might start with one he-goat, and then you find that it's not performing well. You need to add in another he-goat, create that competition, and make sure that your goats are all conceiving. If it's happening in such a way that this animal, the he-goat that is present, is not performing well, you're going to find yourself needing to put in another he-goat, so that you create competition. And these he-goats do not come in cheaply. When you're buying from within Uganda, a good he-goat, a pure he-goat, is going for 3 million shillings minimum. If you are going to import, because we have farmers that are importing goats from South Africa, it goes for 1,500, 1,600 US dollars to import one pure back from South Africa. So you need to keep that in mind. If you do not have the money to go for a pure, maybe you want to start with a he-goat of a certain percentage, maybe 87% or 92%. You can start with that, but know that it will also take you longer to reach the percentages in terms of bloodline that you would want to score at the end of the day. But at least you get an idea that that's the kind of money that you need to be planning around. So people say, no, you need to start with little money. Yes, but I think we need to be very clear. When you're going into farming, you need to have some money. Don't be deceived that you do not need money to do farming. Actually, when you don't have money, it's going to be very frustrating and very disappointing. I've been through a lot because for me, when I came in, of course, when the contract ended, I jumped in with what I had, but it has been really a furnace for me. But it's a learning curve, and that's why I'd like to advise people, and so that they don't go through these kinds of challenges as we venture into an enterprise like goat farming.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good. You talked of constructing structure.
Yes.
You have seen this. And then if you are to see, like in some other places, you see people tying goats outside. So like, what's the difference between goats that are kept like this, that are somewhere to sleep in, or somewhere to take shelter when it's raining, and all that? And then the difference between goats that are always tied outside, they sleep in the cold, they're always hit by rain. You find that some goats also sleep in the bush.
Yes.
Especially when people are like in this farming season where you have a lot of work to do.
Yes, that's very true.
So
that's very true.
Goats might end up sleeping in the bush. What's the difference between this kind of goats and the goats that are kept like this?
Okay. First and foremost, for those that are doing tethering, that we call that tethering, whereby you put a rope on the neck or on the foot, and then you tie. Those are small scale farmers, meaning he's able to tie 6, 7, 10 goats and be able to, tie them, graze them. Sometimes it's because the person is not having the capacity, or it does not feel the need to employ somebody to go into full-time herding of the animals. He feels he can use that money to save and maybe venture by buying save by buying the ropes. He knows it will take maybe 6 months before the rope is spoiled. And so if he's going to incur, say, 3,000 per rope, or 5,000 times maybe 10, it comes to 50,000. He prefers that because 6 months. But for a hard person, the minimum, you hear people talking of 100,000, that's the basic minimum. But you find it has to be around 150, 200,000 average for a hard person. So you remember, the person is also struggling going to the gardener, just like you said, and is living from hand to mouth. He may not be at the level of having a structure and goats in numbers and be able to to look after them using a hard person. So those cases, you'll find that those goats are normally tied around the veranda of the house. So when it rains, it normally hits them. You find they are very cold. You generally find that they have their own challenges. So for the fact that such farmers, normally they are venturing into local goats, which are hardy, as I told you. So much as they are on the veranda, they are not going to suffer so much. If you are a different breed, you would not do that mistake if they are these crosses or boers or savannas or Kalaharis, they'll just die on him. Secondly, you've noticed that such farmers don't even do vaccination. They don't even do deworming. So you'll find those goats, when they are generally emaciated, not as good. There are those who do it, and you find that they are determined, and they do the deworming. You find there's 5, 6, 10 goats on the veranda, quality goats. Those one no, and maybe they are just either lacking space. By the way, some of them is because of space, and he knows that he just has like maybe 2 acres around the home for tethering and keep on rotating them. And he knows that the neighbors have crops, gardens, and he doesn't want that kind of headache. And even if you have a herds person, it's very hard to leave the goats freely on 2 acres and you are one person controlling 4 corners and they are different gardens. You can realize that that's going to be a challenge. But for this one, for this approach where they build a structure, have an exercising yard like you see it, is for people who are aiming to go for commercial farming. People are aiming to do numbers, and that's what sets the two apart.
Okay.
Yes, please.
And like when you're to see, goats are these kind of animals that they don't fall sick frequently like pigs.
Yes.
So what are some of the diseases that always disturb them?
Wow. In terms of the diseases, there are quite a number of diseases that affect goats. First of all, there are 2 types of diseases. There are those diseases that are vaccinatable. That's why if you are a serious goat farmer, we encourage you to do goat vaccination. Do it periodically. You must budget and plan for it on an annual basis. Now, with vaccination, we have a number of diseases. We have, for instance, CCPP. I'll give you the abbreviation. Some of them are having long botanical names and so forth. We have CCPP. We have PPR, sometimes mixed with the goat pox as a vaccination. We have Brucella militensis. We have Clostridios. We have ORF. We have foot and mouth disease. All those are diseases that affect these animals, and so you are supposed to plan for vaccination. Here we've been able to vaccinate these animals. As you see them, they're all vaccinated, apart from the babies that are yet to get that vaccination. We intend to give them Clostridios, I think, next month, as we plan for that. So you'll find that goats will always experience that. Then we also have ORF. By the way, ORF is another disease that can be vaccinated against, that affects goats. You find when the goats develop sores on the mouth, sores inside the mouth, it cannot feed properly, it cannot breastfeed. Goats, you find they are dying in great numbers because of that. Now, those diseases I've talked about, they are airborne. They will come and attack your animals, and you can wake up one day and find the whole herd dead. Some are as deadly. I've seen even some clips on WhatsApp groups talking of places like Pakwach, which have experienced such cases. Now, apart from that, there are other diseases. For instance, you have to make sure that there are those you find they develop lumps around their necks or what, which cysts, which normally give out a lot of pus. It's a very common occurrence. And also that one, it has its own way of how it should be managed and controlled. They find goats developing wounds in between their hooves, especially if you have the practice of releasing goats to go to graze very early in the morning when the dew is still there. That one is another problem. We have things like heart water. Heart water is a disease that is caused by ticks. When ticks affect these goats, especially the hybrid goats, you find they develop a disease that's called heart water, and they have their own characteristics when it is sick, how it behaves. And that's why when it dies and you slaughter the goat, you find it's full of water in the lungs, in the heart area there, and then you get to know it's caused by that. So you are also supposed to provide timely and regular deworming. That one also causes goats. You find the goat is there, it's having a big tummy, it's developing, then you have flu, you have cough. There's quite a lot that you can do. Those that are vaccinatable and that you can vaccinate against, and those that you cannot be able to vaccinate against. You should be able to learn those. But it's something that you learn on a daily basis. And when you have a vet, a district vet or a vet that is visiting your farm is able to provide that kind of information. But when I talk like that, it can scare people and say, but there is too much disease, are we going to manage? Yes, it is there, just like human beings. We have malaria, typhoid, anemia, and so forth. But how long do you suffer from typhoid, depending on how you look after yourself, or malaria and so forth? So it's not to scare you, but to alert you that these things are there and they are facts. But local goats are less susceptible. But when it comes to vaccination, there is nothing like local goat or hybrid. Vaccination is vaccination. It has to be handled. Even when it comes to deworming, the same goat that is eating from the dirty area, it will also experience the same challenge. So you see, all that comes in. Yes.
Okay, how many times do you vaccinate and deworm your goats in a year?
Okay, that's very important. We advise that at least you vaccinate your animals once in a year.
Yeah.
Yes, it can only change if you are the type of person that is dealing in goats and keep on buying goats from outside and you're introducing them. If you're doing that, we encourage that instead, do what? Instead, vaccinate maybe twice in a year, because you're introducing animals coming in, you don't know where they're coming from, and you're likely to cause havoc. And remember, these are animals that you are buying quite expensively, and you've invested a lot in them. So that one we encourage, but under normal circumstances, you can vaccinate once in a year. Apart from those diseases that you may want to vaccinate once in a lifetime. For instance, like Brucella militensis, normally that one they vaccinate once in a lifetime of an animal, and then you keep on, making sure that the animal is healthy. But in terms of deworming, for instance, that one will depend. For instance, if it is you have a grazing area where you have lots of shrubs, that means goats are eating, the grass is tall, they're eating from top and climbing, meaning there are less chances of having a lot of germs coming into contact with the ground, because they are eating from the leaves of the branches and so forth. If you are in such a having a grazing area which is like that, we encourage you to vaccinate at least once every after 3 months. But if you are where you've had cases during the dry season, there's been bush burning, the grass is just coming up, goats are really feeding from down, picking the soft grass. That means when it rains, of course, you know that the soil hits on the leaves so much, chances of germs being on those leaves is too high. So that one you do at least every after 2 months, you vaccinate. So it will depend on how you your environment looks like. If you're into zero grazing, that means you're just introducing food to the animals that are not moving out and they are eating indoors, and it's well taken care of in terms of hygiene. There you find yourself also vaccinating maybe after 3 months, because the chances of disease prevalence is not as high. Yes, please.
Okay. That's a lot. So, like you have said, like there are so many diseases that can affect these goats. Are there some that you can control it?
The diseases?
Yeah.
Yes. Like I said, if you vaccinate those diseases like CCPP, PPR, Brucella militensis, ORF, and so forth, those ones, once you do, you'll find that you're not going to get chances. Even when there's an outbreak, it could come and affect your herd, but it will be at levels where you can be able to detect and control. It will not come and sweep them. Okay. Things like cough, things like flu, those ones we have particular diseases. Remember I told you you're supposed to have a medical kit, medicines kit, where you have these various medications that has been advised by the vet that you should have. Now those ones, when they're there, you're able to give them. You'll find if a goat is having a lot of flu, or there's some cough, sometimes it could be because of the worms, you can be able to give them. But you'll find sometimes they have cysts, and they have some of those boils that you have to cut and then press out the pus and treat it and so forth. You have a spray that you can be able to adjust. You have goats that are having wounds on in between the hooves. When you squeeze and apply a spray. So those ones are some of the diseases that are there, but really manageable, especially if you notice early. it is important that when you're having this enterprise, you engage herdsmen that are passionate. First of all, you, the person, you should be very, very passionate. That is your investment. If you know that you're putting a lot of money and it pains to find and look for this money, you are going to make sure that you're doing the right precautions, to make sure that your animals are safe. Then make sure that the herds person you're having is very passionate. Is able to wake up first thing in the morning, is going to come. As even he's brushing his teeth, is able to look at the animals. How are they? You see? And be able to detect and be able to tell you, move along the goat kids and see what's happening. Look at the adults and then be able to see what to do and be able to alert you. At night when he hears strange noises or something, he's able to wake up and go with a torch and see what's happening. You see? So it's important. Those will help you a great deal. Apart from just picking somebody, if he's a relative and you put him there, you're going to find yourself in trouble. And these are some things we are supposed to be guarding against.
Okay. And then lastly, do you also spray them for ticks?
Yes, actually that's another thing you should be able to take very seriously. Spraying is supposed to be done every week. You're supposed to spray your animals every week and make sure that, and when you're spraying, you have to spray in such a way that the whole goat is supposed to be wet, right from the ears, the head, the back, underneath, and the hooves. You see? And as you see, this is the exercising yard, this is the withholding area, and now this is the withholding area. This is actually where we put the animals when we're spraying. And we will make sure we close there and be able. For the young ones, we make sure that we show them inside their house and be able to spray. By spraying the young ones from inside, the excess spray that is falling down on the grasses and so forth is able to kill any other parasite or ants that could be, fleas or ticks that could be in the grass and be able to kill it. And that's how we do it. But spraying is supposed to be weekly and is very key. Actually, if you're growing these herds and you're going into the hybrids and you don't spray, you're wasting your time. You lose literally all your herds to ticks. Ticks is a very great, one of the greatest enemies of these hybrid goats.
All right, that's quite interesting. Okay, guys, we have been with Mr. Arthur. We have been as you say, we have been sharing a lot about God. Sharing that is quite something interesting and something you can invest your money in because it's not all that tiresome, though you have to be passionate about something when you want to do it. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the information shared. See you again in the next video.
Thank you so much.